This is lesson 1126, the Korean and Vietnam Wars. I'd like to give a special shout out to Carlos, a person I did not know who somehow recognized me at the admin building the other day and said he had seen some of my videos on YouTube. That is the first time that has ever happened to me. And I just want to thank you again, Carlos, for your kind words and your encouragement. So, the main idea. In Asia, the Cold War flared into actual wars, supported mainly by the superpowers. Why it matters now? Today, Vietnam is a communist country that's friendly towards us. And Korea is split into communist and non-communist nations, one of which is very unfriendly towards us. Just one more quick review of Korea for comparison to Vietnam. Remember that Japan had invaded Korea pre-World War II and then lost the territory after the war. The U.S. and the Soviets divided the peninsula between them, just like Germany was divided among the Allies in Europe. The 38th parallel divided North and South Korea, and that 38th parallel represented the line of latitude upon which you find that spot. South Korea, the Republic of Korea, was occupied by the U.S., its government was headed by Syngman Rhee, and it was based in the city of Seoul. North Korea was called the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. It was communist, it was led by Kim Il-sung, and it was based in the city of Pyongyang. Each country claimed the sole right to rule the entire Korean peninsula, leading to June 25, 1950, when North Korea invaded South Korea. U.S. involvement. The U.S. was alarmed by the invasion. They did not want another communist country in the world, and General Douglas MacArthur was put in overall command of UN forces to address the situation. The war in Korea turned into a stalemate, resembling World War I's trench warfare. In 1952, UN troops gained control of South Korea, and on July 27, 1953, the Korean War ended, practically speaking, because both sides signed an armistice. But no peace treaty has been signed. Korea has remained two countries, and a demilitarized zone divided North and South Korea near the 38th parallel, just like it does today. The Vietnam War, around 1965 to 1973. Origins of the Vietnam War. Ho Chi Minh, that wasn't his real name, leader of the Communist Party in Vietnam, had been a son of wealth and privilege. He had grown up in the colony of French Indochina, later to become partly Vietnam and several other countries. He actually lived in France for a while. He became a communist while in France, and he returned to his home country to work for its independence from France. And in fact, here's a picture of a young Ho Chi Minh in France addressing fellow communists. As leader of the Communist Party in Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh received Soviet and Chinese assistance. He joined with other groups to form the Viet Minh Fighting Group, and they sought independence from French rule. The Geneva Accords, after the French withdrawal from Vietnam, divided the country along the 17th parallel, and again that corresponds to lines of latitude. The North was communist, the South was nationalist, and the U.S. sent military aid and training in return for a reform government in the South. The Domino Theory. Once again, it's the idea that if one country fell to communism, neighboring countries would also be in danger of falling to communism. Presidents Truman, Eisenhower, Kennedy, and Johnson all believed in the domino theory. The domino theory dictated U.S. foreign policy around the world. President Lyndon Baines Johnson believed that a communist takeover in South Vietnam would be disastrous. And here's a quote from him. "If I let the communists take over South Vietnam, then my nation would be seen as an appeaser, and we would find it impossible to accomplish anything anywhere on the entire globe." That sounds quite dire. So we had the mentality that we can't afford to lose. How much time and money are you willing to spend, and how many lives are you willing to risk if you think you can't afford to lose. Throughout the 1960s and early 1970s, the USA fought North Vietnamese forces, the Viet Cong, with no victory in sight. The Pentagon assessed as early as 1965 that the war could not be won, but lied about that for years. In 1995, the country of Vietnam estimated that they had lost 1.1 million North Vietnamese and Viet Cong fighters in the war. Can you win every battle and still lose the war? American society was greatly disrupted by disagreement over the war. This is the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C., a wall filled with the names of every American soldier killed in Vietnam. You can go and look at it. And if you turn around and face the other direction from the wall, you see a statue on this next slide. You see a statue of 3 American soldiers coming out of the jungle and seeing the names of their friends on that wall. In the summer of 1969, the recently elected president, Richard Nixon, announced the Vietnamization of the war. In other words, it was a plan to Vietnamize the war by turning it completely over to South Vietnam. South Vietnam, who had always done most of the fighting to begin with, would continue the war against North Vietnam completely alone. Supposedly, this would achieve peace with honor, or you could call it saving face. On January 27, 1973, the U.S. signed an agreement that ended the war, at least for the U.S. involvement of it. On March 29, 1973, the last U.S. troops left Vietnam. In March 1975, the North Vietnamese launched a full-scale invasion against the South, and South Vietnam surrendered to North Vietnam. Today, there is one Vietnam, and it is a one-party communist state. But more importantly, the U.S. and Vietnam are not enemies. And Presidents Clinton, Bush, Obama, and Trump have all made official visits to Vietnam.